Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. I'm your host, Patty Farmer, and I'm looking forward to sharing another amazing industry expert with you today. And I am really excited about our expert today because she comes to us from London. She's someone I've had many, many conversations with, and we have logged a lot of hours, and I'm really glad to be able to share her with you. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So our guest today is Lovelda Vincenzi, who doesn't call herself a speaker. However, she has been speaking and performing on stages since the age of 13. With a background in event creation, she is an incredible MC, moderator, and event host. She says that her role is to help event organizers to transform events into memorable experiences. She's witty, energetic, and funny, and she's had the honor of introducing political figureheads, CEOs, and household names onto the stage. She's the founder of Female Speakers Conference in London, and she is event organizers' secret weapon. Lovelda empowers women to unleash their powerful, authentic voices and grow their impact and profits. So thank you so much, Lovelda, for being here with me today.
Oh, absolute pleasure.
Yes, I'm so excited. So let's just kind of dive right in. So I always like to say that we didn't wake up one day and just decide to be who we are, right? There was some steps along the way. For some, it was one big aha moment. And for some, it was a little bit of some small steps. So could you share with us a little bit on how did you decide to become a speaker in the first place and be on stages since the age of 13, and then kind of knew that it was right for you to transition into being who you are now and how you serve?
I think I was one of these people. I've always loved a stage, and I grew up internationally. I grew up in Papua New Guinea, and every year at school we used to do these huge productions in like the local theater, which was like a big deal, and it was like the highlight of my year. So I've always been in that space. And when it came to hosting and emceeing, it was something I was doing just as a side thing to help people out, or I'd occasionally be asked to do it. I think when it finally dawned on me, like, this is probably something really worth diving into, is the very first time I got headhunted for an event that was international. And I thought, wait a minute. So people pay for this, and I get to travel, and I get to do cool things. It's like all of my favorite things wrapped into one. So sometimes I just think it's a real blessing. I got blessed.
I love that because, a lot of times we are blessed when something just comes along. I always like to say I became an accidental speaker. It was never on my radar to be a speaker ever. Really, even though I'd been in marketing for a long, long time, it just really wasn't until someone asked me to do it as a favor to them. And I did it. And when I got done, 37 people came up to me and said, "How can I hire you?" And I thought, where in the world can you talk to people and literally have that type of potential, not just for profits, like you said, but to really be able to serve and make an impact. And that's even more important. So I absolutely love that. But sometimes we stand in our own way, right? Sometimes there's a lesson that we have to learn that gets us to the place where we are of the most service and really are doing what we're passionate about and what our purpose is. What's the lesson that took you the longest to learn?
Mine is probably like a really basic dum-dum lesson, which is called be yourself.
You're so funny. That's not a dumb lesson. I think a lot of times we get caught up in doing instead of being, right? And sometimes in order to really move forward, we have to stop doing and just be and be ourselves.
It's so true. I mean, for me, I think the thing with any industry in which you can be deemed a performer, and sometimes because you're entertaining on a stage and you're pulling people together, it can become a bit of putting on a show or wanting to imitate others. And I think many business owners face this. You're looking at who's really successful and how do they show up and what do they do. And there's a tendency to want to imitate to a certain extent, to use the way that they make money for you to make money. It took me a while to get that I make the most money when I do things my way, because nobody else can do it like me. And it's something I knew on an intellectual level for the longest time, but it took a hot moment for me to really, really get it.
I think that makes a lot of sense too. I always like to tell my clients, you're not trying to reinvent ice cream. You're just coming up with your own flavor. And I think when they don't do it, that's why there's such an epidemic right now of people feeling that imposter syndrome, right? Where they feel like, oh, I'm not really being authentic, because they are trying to imitate what somebody else is doing because they think it will work for them. Now, one of the things that I absolutely love about you is you are very witty and energetic. And I believe that whenever I have spoken at an event and they had an MC, literally that person sets the stage for everybody, right? It's probably, to be totally honest, one of the most important roles, really, because if you had an MC and they weren't witty, energetic, fun, kept the energy up in the room and stuff, really it's not as good an event for everybody, right? So that is a key position, really, in an event.
Well, so I think so. I'm a little biased.
Right. I think so too. Really, honestly, like I said, I've spoken at events where that person was there and it really did make all the difference, right? It just kind of sets the day up. So I think it's kind of a really like up-leveling being a speaker, like going from a speaker that you just kind of up-leveled it up and you're serving in a way that really helps everybody. And I really love that. And I know that you said you were on stages since you were 13, so we're not going to give a time or an age. But if you could go back and talk to your, let's just say, 25-year-old self, what would you tell yourself to do first that could get you to where you are now and maybe bypass some of those little steps?
Take the time to know yourself. I think there's a lot of people with a lot of ideas and a lot of insight, and it's really easy to not listen to what you know to be true. And it took me a long time kind of going full circle to get back to, if it doesn't feel right to me. I remember when I started out in personal development, and I went to, I'm sure many people have done this, like every seminar under the sun. And one minute I was a property investor, and then the next minute I was an internet marketer, and then the next minute I was like whatever the next thing was coming. And it took me a moment to get that none of these people were lying when they were on the stage and they're sharing about how it's possible to make money. But it took me a while to work out how I do it. And the fact that I don't do it like somebody else, that's great. I don't need to do it like them. There are certain personalities that are more suited to one direction than other direction. And so long as I stay true to what I know I'm good at and do it in a way that's true to me, that's where I'll always have the most success. I think I spent a while off trying to be somebody I wasn't. And maybe that's normal. Maybe that just helps you get to a place where you know yourself better. But yeah, I wish I'd kind of got there quicker.
I think that makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, it's kind of like, when somebody cooks you this great meal and you say, oh, can I have the recipe for that? And they give you the recipe and it never tastes the same because they do a pinch of this and a little of that. And even if you exactly measure what they say, they really didn't fix it that way, because after you do something over and over, you kind of get a little bit of yourself is in there, right? So I think that is what really make somebody a good speaker, a good entrepreneur, because that's what I'm looking for. And I have to tell you, I went through that too. I remember when I first became a speaker, I thought, I was supposed to be so eloquent. And I was supposed to make 3 points and then have this pregnant pause and turn this way and my voice go up here and do all these kind of things. And it took me a while for me to figure out that it wasn't that I needed to change me to be like them. It was that I needed to speak on stages in front of people who needed to hear it the way I say it. And you're right, that is really being authentically you. And I think it is something really, really important. And since a lot of my audience are speakers on all different levels, from emerging speakers to professional speakers, I think it's really important. And sometimes you need a little bit of a refresher, right? So I really hope that they're listening here and really realizing it's okay to step back and go, you know what? That's really not working for me. I think maybe I'm doing that because I thought everybody else needed to. And it's okay to just be my own flavor, right? So I love that. I hope that's a value bomb right there that everybody really got. So what do you love most about your business today? Like now that you have stepped into that and you're getting to show up in your authentic self and do something you love, but what do you love the most about your business? So I know you said traveling, which that's a big one for me. That's why I love traveling internationally to speak. But other than just that, like the whole mechanics of your business in general, not just that one thing, what do you love about it the most?
So for me, I feel blessed I get to meet some really incredible people. I kind of look and I go, if I wasn't doing this, would I be sitting with these sorts of CEOs and politicians, etc.? Like, would I have ever had a time at a table to speak to them in any way, shape or form? So that's pretty kind of cool and exciting to me. Like I just get to rock up and have these incredible conversations. I love that I get to empower women in particular to step up and truly just own who they are. Seeing so many different ways in which people present on the stage and seeing the opportunity. Like for me, I come back from an event and I almost want to shout from the rooftops, if you're a female speaker, like now is the best time. There's so much opportunity. So being able to be that person who's like a conduit between the world of events and speaking and behind the scenes, because I do a lot of moderating and hosting, I get closer to organizers. So I have a real sense of what they're looking for. And then being able to convey that back to have a real cause of helping other people's voices go further. I sit here and I'm like, I'm so blessed.
Isn't that wonderful? It's such a great place to be. And more than that, I love that you recognize how blessed you are, and yet you want to empower other women too, which I think is what's really, really wonderful, right? It's all about making a bigger impact and like passing it on, not keeping it to yourself. I think that is really, really important. So I'm going to ask you a question that pretty much is a question a lot of people ask, but I'm going to add my own little twist to it, right? So here's the question. If you could have lunch with any CEO, who would it be? That's the question everybody asks, but here's my little twist. What would be the number one question you would want them to answer for you? So if you're sitting with them, like what is that number one thing that you would want to take away from having that conversation with them?
So my CEO would be Oprah. I love that woman. I just think she's incredible. And you'd think I would have sat and thought about what I would ask Oprah like before now, but I haven't. Thanks for putting me on the spot. I'm going to practice coming up with something on the spot. What would I ask Oprah? I'd want to know what her drive was to keep going and to create such a significant empire. Like what was really the driving force behind her taking things as far as she has done? That's what I want to know. Why?
I think that's really
what in
great.
her does it? Yeah.
You want to know what I'd want to know?
What would you want to know?
What I would want to know is how she was able to have the relationship and friendship she has with her best friend, Gail, when she was so much more successful early on, that didn't become a problem. Like she helped her friend. And we all know Gail is very successful in her own right now. But in the beginning, she had a little bit of help from her best friend. And, you know, a lot of times when one friend is more successful than another, she balanced that whole relationship that she obviously meant a lot to her and she wanted to help her, and how they were able to keep that relationship to the level that they have and not let any of those other things come in between them. I think that's a really tough thing to do. And I would really love to know how they were able to manage doing that. And it says a lot about both of them.
It really does. Now, can we just interview Oprah and get our questions answered? Because I think we're on a roll here, Patty.
I know that would just be fabulous, and that's always so interesting when people answer this question, because I think a lot of times they'll say, oh, this person and that person. But the question for me really honestly is, that's great. I could do that too. But what's the question? Like, what do you want to know if you really actually got to do it? So that's why, and you had a really great answer. So I really love that. So thanks so much. So let's talk a little bit about speaking, right? So you're kind of like a conduit, right? You're like this person in between these, you come from you've been an event host, you've been a speaker, and you've actually, introduced people to stages that are not just entrepreneurs, right? So you have this wide range, right? So I think you bring a lot to the table there. So let's kind of talk a little bit about speaking, if you don't mind. I think a lot of people would kind of really want to see some of those insights right there. So what do you think are some of the various opportunities to leverage speaking? So it doesn't matter what kind of a speaking engagement it is, whether you're a professional speaker, a speaker that gets paid to speak, or whether you're selling something, or maybe you're just an emerging speaker, whatever. What are some of the things that you would tell us? What are some of the tips or strategies you could share on how they should leverage those speaking gigs?
So I think often people think about how to make money immediately from the speaking engagement. And it's important. Like, are you selling something to people who are in the room? Have you been paid to show up, so you're getting a fee? And that's normally the two primary objectives where people are focused when they're thinking of speaking, like, where is the money coming from? And it's normally very direct, specific to that event. When I started, I thought much broader than that. So I literally saw every speaking opportunity as a marketing opportunity. And I think that's why I managed to grow my business as quickly as I did. So I would have a plan. This is how it relates back to marketing, right? I would have a plan laid out before I went on stage for each event. Like, why am I doing this? Not just they've paid me a speaker fee, but what else can I get from it? Like, literally, I want to sit and write down like 15, 20 different ideas of where the opportunities are. So examples could be, I host my own podcast. There may be some people in the speaker lineup where I think, oh, it's a really great opportunity to speak to them, because that would be a great opportunity to get to know them more or get them involved. I have a conference, that might be another opportunity to engage with them. So not necessarily directly like, where's the client? But I also think, how can I use this opportunity to leverage to catapult my speaking business? So is this a great opportunity to do behind the scenes interviews? Is this a great opportunity? Are there some great people that if I could get a video testimonial from them, like, that would make it worthwhile. Like, I just need this person to say something great about me. So for example, the last event I did, it was the ex-CEO of Unilever. He's a really cool guy. And I just thought, if he's telling people I'm great at speaking, like, it's going to make it so much easier for me to get booked again. So I look much more broadly at where the opportunities are.
I want you to know this is like my favorite subject. So I was super excited about talking to you about this. And you and I have actually logged some hours talking about it among ourselves too. But I think this is such an important thing. So I really want to spend a little bit of time on this, because you're right. Leveraging a speaking engagement is just like it's a marketing opportunity. And I think that it doesn't matter whether it's even an in-person one. It could be a virtual summit. It could be, talking, being a guest on somebody's podcast. I think having a plan and knowing what you want to do is really important. Just this morning on my mastermind, somebody was talking about wanting to know what kind of offer or freebie they should be able to make when they were on a podcast. And my question to them was, do you even know who the demographic is of the audience? Like, know this. Like, what are the things that you're going to ask before you even get on that podcast? Whether you get on that stage, before you make any of those decisions, really, you should already have, like you said, that whole list of how you're going to leverage it. It's always before, during, after. And I love the example you gave about the podcast, because the reality is, wouldn't you say, that you are going to leverage it a lot better and quicker if you're coming to the opportunity as the giver, right? So if you have a podcast and you're talking to somebody and you're giving first, right? I mean, that just kind of opens up the whole conversation in a whole different way, makes it more dynamic, right, in itself. So I love going to events, whether I'm attending, speaking, sponsoring, hosting, whatever the case may be. I am always looking for certain things where I can offer opportunities to other people. I'm always looking for joint venture and collaborative opportunities. And of course, we're always looking for other speaking opportunities as well. So there's a wide range of what you're looking for and how you can leverage it. But I think you nailed it when you said it's actually having a plan. It's like knowing, why are you even doing it in the first place? And what do you want to come out of it? I think a lot of people just think about the initial amount of money they're getting paid for it, or, you know, here's the initial thing that I get to do. There's so much more to it. And there's so much more. There's a reason why they have that cliche saying, the fortune's in the follow-up, right?
It really is. Like, don't even get me started on terms of follow-up. Like, I could go on for ages. I think the other thing is when you have a plan, you can come prepared. So I just finished an engagement in Paris, and I just had a sense they've seriously upped I've done it last year. It's the third year in a row. I've been with them since the beginning. And this year they took it to a whole nother level. And going into it, I just thought, I'm going to pick clients up from this. I mean, not that I was going to tell people on the stage, by the way, I host, come talk to me. I don't need to do that. You don't need to be in your face about it. But because I knew these opportunities were coming, I hadn't had business cards in like forever because I just kept changing things and I couldn't find a design I wanted. But I got business cards printed before, and I left there. I'm speaking to at least 6 different people about events off the back of this one event that I did. And that meant, but it was doing those exchanges. I mean, I think I had a meeting while I was there. Somebody LinkedIn me, like, come, can we talk? I have an event, we should speak. So the beauty of the preparation of the plan, like sitting down and thinking strategically, not just about what you want, but also, and you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, what can you offer? What are the opportunities you can bring to the table that might be of interest to further a relationship? Because sometimes the sale is in the room, but sometimes the sale comes later because you fostered really good relationships. And if you can have a think about it beforehand, then you're coming prepared for those discussions rather than missing them, just not even seeing them.
I absolutely agree with you. And I would say hands down, I have probably made more money from opportunities that have come from speaking than actually even people who wrote me a check just to speak, right? You know, it's the opportunities, because it's like the gift that keeps on giving once you build those relationships, right? So I think that is very, very important. And I also feel like when you're doing it and you're having conversations with people, if you lead with contribution, compensation will follow. So you just need to have conversations with people and talk about other things, right? Not just that one thing. And if you have a plan, you're able to do that. I also want to talk about, when we're talking about leverage, and you actually touched on it a little bit, is when you have an opportunity. So we both talked about travel. So one of the things that I know for me is, I haven't told you this since I did this, but I just got inducted into the Hall of Fame in London for the speaking thing, and I'm going to be coming to London for that. But with that said, because that happened, and I'm going to go there to this gala when I get inducted into that, I all of a sudden started putting out feelers for, like, I'm already going to be in London, right? So because you're already going to be someplace, you should back a gig with a gig with a gig, right? You know, and so the reality really is there may be people who would love for you to speak or serve in some capacity, could introduce you to amazing peoples, but maybe their budget isn't really enough for you to be able to make that travel. Like, you know, to bring me to London and you want me to do it on my dime, probably not going to happen all too often. But if somebody else is paying me to come though, and I'm already going to be there, it's an opportunity for me to put out feelers between now and then and to talk to the people I've built relationships and say, you know what, I'm already going to be there. And so now I'm coming to London and I'm going to do 4 other things while I am there, right? So that's how you actually really make money too, right? And then that fosters even more relationships. And so you have even more opportunities. And then it's not just about you. Now you've made these connections that now you can serve other speakers, right? So I think that that is really important to really think about what those opportunities are. So what do you think about that?
I think, you couldn't have put it better. The relationships are really important, and understanding, well, if I'm going to be there already, what else can I do? Or who, especially nowadays where I have so many digital friends, not to say that they're they're the real people. they just happen to exist, live in different parts of the world. So I don't get to meet them face to face that often. But I think the real important thing that sits underneath that is it doesn't happen if you don't put the time into the relationship. So just knowing somebody and chasing them just for you doesn't work. Well, it certainly doesn't work for me. What I found effective is if I've made a connection with you, I'm going to keep that connection going. Firstly, because I like you and therefore I want to stay connected because I just think you're cool, and for nothing else. So there's no hidden agenda. But often what happens from there is other gigs come from it. So the Monica Lewinsky gig that I got, where I got to not only introduce her, but that interview her on the stage, came from off the back of a gig I did in Paris, where I just hit it off with one of the speakers. I just liked them. We had a really good chat. And then fast forward 6 months, her friend is organizing this event in Lithuania. Monica Lewinsky's coming. They just didn't have a host in enough time. So she puts me in touch with them, like lastminute.com over Facebook, and I end up landing this gig. So you just never know where one thing is going to lead to another, but I don't go into relationships because of where it's going to lead, because that just never seems, there's a selfish energy in that. It doesn't really seem to work. So I say the relationship first because you like somebody and you connect, but also just consciously keeping those connections going, finding the opportunities to connect again in 3 months or 6 months, or have a call 2 weeks later before you become a blip. Otherwise you've met them, but what does it mean? Like, they can't remember you remember it, but they can't remember it. It was so many years later. But unless you've had a conversation or a moment, it's quite difficult to leverage those relationships because they're not real.
I agree. I also think that one of the things that I have really done to build my business, and whenever I talk about this, people will say to me, oh, I never thought of doing that. So sometimes it makes me laugh about what I think is the most obvious, right? But then I'm in marketing, and I'm also understand and have built my business knowing that relationships are the currency that we now have in this environment that we're in. But with that said, to get back to that, so here we are. You travel internationally. I travel internationally. We're speaking on all these stages. In your case, you're also being an MC. So we get to know a lot of other speakers, right? It's a small world in a way. Here's the thing. Not to say that events don't have some of the same people back more than one time, because that happens a lot, right? Mm-hmm. However, once they get to know you, they know how you're going to show up, right? They trust you now. You've built a relationship with them. When that event is over, right, you stay in contact with them. Now they're getting ready to do their next event, right? And they want different speakers, right? What a great way for you to be able to refer and be of service to them and say, now that I've spoken at your event, I kind of know what your jam is, right? I understand the demographics, what you're looking for. When you're ready to put out a call for speakers, I can probably, introduce you and refer you to several people that I think would exactly fit what you're looking for. So every time I speak, my goal is to replace myself with another speaker. Like, that's just in my mind. My goal is, if I've spoken here, who do I know in my network as a speaker who would be a great fit for their event, either the next year or the next year after that? And who can I introduce them to and say, you know what, now I've been a speaker. I see what you're looking for. Let me introduce you to some other people. And if you think about it, if every speaker had those relationships and we were all referring each other, how many more speaking engagements would you have that were not just speaking engagements, but right fit speaking engagements because somebody referred you that knew you would be a good fit because they've already been on their stage?
You know what? I also look at it the opposite way around. I think as a speaker, you have a network. You know, speakers know speakers the same way lawyers know lawyers and plumbers know plumbers, right?
Right.
And often it's kind of, when I speak to people, I say, start with the low-hanging fruit. You know people who speak. Where do they speak? Just, you know, you can almost set up your own little, you know, referral networks between you where you can have those sort of conversations. But the challenge is often that we're so caught up in our own little bubble of the world that we forget that there's all these amazing opportunities really close by. And people are willing to introduce people that are close to them that they know and they understand their reputation. But you've got to be able to demonstrate your skill set, and you have to actually have a quality of relationship for that to happen, because your name goes with the referral, and people don't want to refer people where they're not sure or not confident that they're going to be able to follow through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. So how big of a role do you believe social media plays nowadays from a speaker MC point of view? So I know that you and I have talked before about how important speaker marketing is with LinkedIn, right? So let's kind of talk a little bit about social media. So what are some of the ways that as a speaker, MC, event host, the whole gamut of everything you've done, has social media played for you successfully?
What I will say is I learned a really interesting thing. So I don't have, I have a sales background, less of a marketing background. I have a really, you know, I worked in sales for years. But I understood the world of social media in so much as I should probably tell people what I'm up to. And so naively, when I started, normally just out of excitement, because I booked something and I was excited about it, I would shout it from the rooftops. Oh my gosh, I've just been booked for this thing. And then I'd go through the page and I'd be excited again. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be introducing these people. Can you believe it's going to be me and them on the same stage? So I was really just doing it not strategically at the time. I was really doing it from a space of I'm just really excited. And I did that a few times. I'd be at the event, I'd do some social media then, and then afterwards the photos would come out. So I'd upload the photos in social media, and then I'd upload the videos, and I'd do a little montage, and then somebody would do me a testimonial on LinkedIn. And I felt I needed to tell the world about it because, oh my gosh, it's the ex-president of Estonia and he loves me, you know. But what I noticed was it would be months later and people, like my friends, would be like, oh my gosh, you were traveling the other week. And I was like, no, like that was like 3 months ago. So people can be really fickle-minded in terms of what they remember. And so not saying anything at all makes it quite difficult. There's a lot of the consistency, especially if you're new to speaking, just the consistency of letting people know that you're doing an engagement or something about it or your learnings from it helps to embed in the mind of your network that this is something that you do, which makes it easier to get the referrals. It makes it easier for people to ask you. And that might be why I got so many people contacting me early on, even when I hadn't necessarily said this is what I do. It just appeared on it was LinkedIn predominantly at the time, a little bit of Facebook. Facebook was mainly my friends. I've got very little business from Facebook unless it's a referral. Cold leads have always come from LinkedIn.
I find that really interesting, but I do agree with you. And I think, too, that in your own excitement, part of being authentically you, you're also every single time talking about where that event is. So you're actually serving the host, you know, the hotel, the venue, whatever the case may be, when you do that. I think I love seeing, it's kind of like how people in the marketing world love looking at other people's funnel, right? Like they sign up for stuff just to see what their whole, you know, funnel thing looks like. I think it's the same way as I approached it when I first started speaking. Like when I show up at a place, I always love to go check the room out. Don't we all? Like, let's see what the setup is. And I always take a picture then, empty. Like, you know, and then I'll sometimes post that. I'm so excited. And then when you have your marketing materials, like maybe you're going to have this table or whatever, I like to share that. So excited here, you know. So really all along the way, that's what we were talking about earlier about before, during, and after. Because the reality really is, how many times can you get on any social media and say, look at me, I'm speaking at blah, 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 right? I mean, so the reality really is then it's about you. And it's not about you, right? It's always about them. So really it's about what can you be doing to help them? Because the reality is that if you're a speaker, other speakers are watching you and they're getting ideas from what you do. So you're serving them. So when I see other people and they put out their materials, I'm like, oh, that looks really good. I never thought about doing that, right? Or somebody told me once I had posted this banner. This was when I was early on, but it really stuck with me. And somebody I didn't really know. I mean, like they were a Facebook friend, like had never met them. And they posted this thing and they said, Patty, just a little tip. You have your website at the bottom of your banner and you should always put it at the top of your banner so that when you're standing in front of it and people take pictures of you, that your website's at the top. Like that was such like a newbie like thing, right? But you know what? When I go places, I can't tell you how many times I see it. Like they'll put some like eye-catching thing that they think is a headline, but all their contact information is at the bottom. But when you're standing, they don't really take a picture of your feet. They take a picture of you up here. So the reality is it really should be at the top. So there's a lot of things you can learn from just what people post. So I think social media really is a place there. But now I want to go a little bit deeper, right? So a little bit deeper is let's talk about speaker profiles, right? So whether it's their speaker sheet or their profiles on social media, one of the things that cracks me up is I have a speaker Facebook group, right? And it's a global speaker Facebook group and people will, and I vet it to make sure that they're really a speaker. And they'll send me these requests and literally all you have to do is hover over their name and you see their little intro comes up and it won't say anywhere that they're a speaker. Now, this may be a bit broad, but to me, if you don't have speaker on your business card and it's not even in your profile, you're not a speaker. You just want to be a speaker. Because if you were a speaker, you would know that you should say speaker, right?
I kind of say, look, if somebody tells you they're a professional model and they don't have any professional headshots, do you believe them? Like, it's just like, I think just because you say you're a speaker, there are certain tools of any craft that allow you or give the impression of somebody who's professional and serious and somebody who isn't. And so, in the speaking industry, it is, if speaking is a side thing, I don't expect to find it. But if you're telling me you're a professional speaker, your LinkedIn profile doesn't say it. I go to your website, it doesn't say it. I can't find any video footage. There's no biography. Like there's nothing out there in the public domain that corroborates your story, because by this point I'm now thinking it's a story, because if it were true then it would all match up, but now I'm thinking there's nothing out there to corroborate this thing that you say that you're a speaker. I think it's something that people are getting really excited about saying, but if you're serious, like really serious, and you and this is something you do bona fide, then just tell people, like make it, because otherwise what happens, I think what people miss is that there's an opportunity, there's a sales, an opportunity cost in your marketing.
Absolutely.
And often you don't know the deals you miss because you don't have the information there. We almost, for the Female Speakers Conference last year, we almost did not hire our headline speaker, and she is fantastic. And the reason we almost didn't hire her is because we couldn't find out anything about her. We couldn't find any real video footage. We go through her website and we're like, it looks like she's more like a consultant. We couldn't corroborate that this is an international speaker. And she speaks for large organizations. She's been doing it for years. We happen to have a mutual friend who vouched for her big style. We got on a call within 10 minutes. We're both like, oh my gosh, we'd be lucky to have her because she's amazing. But at the time, it's changed now. At the time, there was nothing on her profile to corroborate the story, and she almost lost it. Not that it was a deal she necessarily needed to have, but if you're new to speaking, or it's something you're moving into, you will be burning through leads in sales terms, because people will bounce off your profile. They will go, you'll send them an email, you'll say, I'm interested, you'll get in touch. They will look you up. If what they find does not excite them, they just don't respond. And you don't even know that that's the reason that the deal didn't go forward.
I think that really makes a lot of sense. So I think a lot of it also is what type of a speaker you are. Like, obviously, if you're a professional speaker in the sense that you get paid to speak and that is what you do, you're going to pay a little bit more attention to that, right? But if you're also a professional speaker and you have a business like you and I, right? And stuff. So I am a professional speaker, but I am the CEO of a marketing and media firm, right? Agency, right? A lot of times what I see people happen is that they get so focused on that thing because that's the thing they think is going to make them money. So they talk about that a lot more. But if you're using speaking as a business strategy or as a marketing strategy, it is equally as important, right? Because I always like to tell people all the time, people don't hire speakers, they hire industry experts, right? And so I think that is really important. And you're right, they need to have collaborating evidence of whatever it is that they're telling. Because if it's not coming through to us, when people are deciding whether they want to attend an event and they're going to be flying, staying in a hotel, whatever the case may be, they're deciding and they're going to look up those people too when they're making that decision. And if you can't find it and they can't find it, it could be the difference between them saying yes or no, they're going to attend that event. So you're right. I think it is very, very important. And we have covered a lot of things. I hope everybody took a lot of notes and stuff because it was really very, very important, right? This is some good stuff. So how can people connect with you? Because they're going to want more. They're going to want more.
So I'm on www.lovelda.com. I also have a Facebook group called World Class Female Speakers. If you want to join that group, it's totally free to join. And I share tips and information and backstage gossip and whatever else I come up with in that space. With a name like Lovelda, just type it into Google. I'm not that difficult to find. I can't hide.
Well, we'll make sure that we put the links to those in the show notes as well, so they won't have to even worry about that. But you did even more. You come bearing gifts, kind of like showing up with good wine to dinner, right? So tell us a little bit about the gift that you brought with you.
So we've spoken about it today. It's this idea of how do you make the most out of a gig. So I pulled together my strategy, like the before, the during, the after, how to leverage every single speaking opportunity to get more. I'm even going to share like a secret one that's in there. So just to give you a hint. So for example, I love to build my LinkedIn recommendations. I have over 100 of them at the moment. This is how I do it. Before I go to the event, I send them a LinkedIn request. The LinkedIn request says, hey, we're going to be at the same event. I thought we should connect. It's a reason to connect. Then during the event, I do my best to connect with the individual. And afterwards, when I send them a LinkedIn recommendation, they know who the heck I am and they're more likely to respond. So it's got loads of tips like that. Like what sort of things do you need to have in place before an event? Checklist of things to do and why to do them and how to do them. Checklist of things to do during the event. So you're collecting the marketing collateral that you need to build your profile, and then how to best yet leverage those things after the event.
You are such a great guest. So much. So thank you so much. And as if that's not enough, we are at the portion of my show that I always like to call OpenMic, kind of my own version of social karaoke. So I'm gonna, that's my hashtag social karaoke. So what I like to say here is we're going to pass the mic, and my show is the Marketing, Media, and Money Show. So will you please share your number one strategy on marketing, media, or money?
Okay, so mine's a money strategy. I told you I came from a sales background, and so it was kind of embedded in me. And mine is focus on the sales follow-up so that you can do less, like have more strategy. Most people burn through far too many leads because you're too busy contacting lots of people. In truth, if you contact the right people, but be persistent with it, the sale is made in the follow-up. I mean, I reach out to 10 event organizers a week, and each of them get 5 follow-up emails before I drop it because people are busy and it's not their responsibility to remember. And so if you're not top of mind or they're in the middle of something, somebody else comes in and takes the opportunity. So if it's important to you, have a structure in place to consistently follow up on deals, because that's how you close business. You gotta follow up, gotta be eager and consistent. Like put the reminders in there and stuff, like, bounce it to the top of your list, but but don't let it drop. As a salesperson, like the question I'd get asked in a sales meeting, I'm going to give you some background. If I went to my weekly sales meeting, I would be asked, where's the deal at? And if it was behind, when was the last time you contacted them? And 9 times, if I could count the number of times a sales director would say, okay, follow up. When's the next meeting? When are you seeing them? How many times did you call? When was the last time you called? Call them again. But that's how it works. And it's not long periods either. You don't wait 3 weeks, 2 days, 3 days. You pick up the phone and just a little prod, just, hi, remember, people are busy. They're not.
It's like buying brain cells. It's like buying brain cells. Got to be top of mind. It's really funny that you said that, because I've been married for like 25 years to my husband. And every time, I have this idea, I always like present it to my husband first, right? I'd be like, oh, honey, I came up with this great idea. Like other people squirrel. I have brilliant ideas. Brilliant idea syndrome, I call it. And so I'll tell my husband, and every single time what he would say, first thing out of his mouth, how are you going to make money? How are you going to monetize that? That's always like every single time. So the first time that I spoke, when I was telling you earlier about that accidental speaking, right? I came home and I told my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be a speaker. I'm going to tell everybody. It was like 10 days after that, I had my first international speaking gig, which led to 3 more. And that's how I became an international speaker in 2 weeks. So I tell my husband, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to sell, because they told me I could, offer a product. So I told my husband, and I'm so proud of myself because I knew he was going to say, and how are you going to monetize that? Like I knew it. He'd done it to me so many times. So I was so proud of myself. So I waited and he asked the question, and then I was ready. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm blah, blah, blah. And I tell him. And when I got done, I was like so proud of myself. And I looked at him and he just kind of had this look on his face. And I said, what? He said, you had a decimal in the wrong place. I'm like, what? And then he said, yes. And it was like detrimental decimal, right? But that taught me early on, and which is why this is what I kind of do for a living, is really, that's my first question to my clients too. How are we going to monetize it? Like what that has to be like. So it's really great. If you do what you love and you would do it, whether you got paid or not, that's really, really great. Right. But if you still want to make money and you want to monetize it, like you have to know these things. So I love that you ask those questions, right? It's like, about sales, right? So I think that is really important. So I love that. You have just been so generous in sharing your brilliance, and I absolutely love you for that. We're probably going to have you back on again so we can talk about the fortune in the follow-up, so we can just take that to the next thing. But thank you so much for being on the show here with me today.
I have had an extraordinary time. Like this is giving me life.
You're so funny. So thank you for listening to the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, and I am sure you did, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. And make sure to join us on Facebook in the Marketing, Media, Money magazine podcast and event Facebook group. It's also free. We'd love to be able to hook you up with those connections to the people on the podcast and in our sister publication, the magazine. Until we talk again, have a phenomenal day. If your day isn't phenomenal, change it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.